How did a baby born into poverty grow up to struggle in high school academically, lose two of his brothers in a plane crash, and even seen his diner burn straight to ashes, manage to build an empire rooted in biblical beliefs that turned his family into one of the wealthiest families in America, with a worth of a whopping $14.2 billion? Chick-fil-A, which was birthed shortly after the Great Depression, is a prime illustration of turning a family-owned business into a billion-dollar empire. This is the insanely inspiring story of Chick-fil-A, which begins with founder Samuel Truett Cathy. Samuel Truett Cathy was born on March 14, 1921 in Eatonton, Georgia. He was welcomed into this world through his mother Lilla Cathy and father Joseph Cathy. Truett grew up in a Southern Baptist Christian household, along with his 6 other siblings. His mother and father instilled into all of their children a relationship with God at a young age, and it surely followed them for the rest of their lives. During the times of the late 1920s to the late 1930s, however, times got extremely hard. The Great Depression hit and made it very hard for Joseph and Lilla Cathy to put food on the table for their children. It was at this moment that young Truett began to see that being an entrepreneur was necessary and provided a chance to survive in times like this. Knowing this, at 8 years old, Truett began to sell Coca-Cola bottles that were filled with ice and also hustling peanuts in front of his parents' home. Then, around the age of 12, Truett started the paper route and subscription service, the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is still in business to this day. This was a huge success and became the building blocks of Truett's young entrepreneur mentality that will ultimately drive him later in his life. Truett was a C student in high school. He often struggled, but eventually graduated from what was known then as Henry W. Grady High School in 1939, Midtown High School today. While not enrolling into college after high school, Truett got drafted into World War II in 1939 and was discharged in 1945 due to his faithful and patriotic duties in honor. When returned home from the war in 1945, Truett and his brother Ben Cathy noticed a huge increase in diners across Atlanta. Putting their brains together, they opened a diner together with the money Truett saved while being paid in the US Army. They opened a diner in 1946 and named the diner Dwarf Grill due to its very small size and space. The diner only had 10 stools and 4 booths to fit with a 26-seat capacity. They opened the location in Hapeville, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. Dwarf Grill was also very close to a working Ford auto plant, which benefited Truett and Ben with having the customers of the plant working long shifts and clocking out of work hungry and looking for somewhere to eat. Truett and Ben worked opposite 12-hour shifts Monday through Sunday, so the diner could be open 24 hours a day. Dwarf Grill was closed on Sundays as rest was needed for Truett and Ben, but more importantly, they wanted to keep the Sabbath day holy. While Dwarf Grill was having early success and making its name known around the city, tragedy was looming. Brothers of Truett, Ben and Horace, flew on an airplane in July of 1949 heading to Chattanooga, Tennessee, but crashed near Dalton, Georgia. The crash left both brothers deceased. The loss of Ben and Horace hurt Truett and his family very deeply. Losing Ben also made Truett sole owner of the diner. But Truett never gave up and vowed to keep the business going. After the loss of Ben, Jeanette Cathy, Truett's wife, came and helped her husband in the diner. She served food and drinks to customers as a waitress and even helped behind the counter as a cashier at the cash register. With expansion in mind, Truett opened a second location in Forest Park, Georgia in 1960. After opening this location, Truett decided on a name change and renamed the diner Dwarf House. Truett franchised this name in Atlanta. With things finally looking up after the passing of his brothers Ben and Horace, tragedy came once more with Truett's second location in Forest Park blazing into flames. The diner burned from sunup until sundown, leaving nothing but ash and black smoke. While the cause of the fire was unknown, insurance only would cover $25,000 of the damage. This left Truett with extreme financial debt and uncertainty in what he should do next. While keeping faith, Truett made an attempt to innovate. Truett came up with a new concept of a self-service diner style, which was the customers serving themselves. Truett dumped $90,000 into a new diner from a bank loan. Truett believed this was the jackpot. That is, until customers walked through his doors complaining about there being no waitresses nor drink refills. Truett, in disbelief, reached out to a friend and consulted for advice. His friend offered Truett to lease his diner and buy all of the equipment to open the first KFC in Atlanta. Truett agreed. As thoughts began to sink in of being a failure and that his diners will never be a success, Truett was approached by Hall and Jim Good in 1961, the owners of Good Brothers Poultry. After a failed deal with Delta Airlines, the Good brothers asked Truett to use their A-grade quality chicken in his diner. Truett made a deal with the brothers to use their chicken, and it was amazing. For years, Truett experimented with hundreds of different recipes and seasonings to perfect his chicken. Finally, in 1964, he created the chicken sandwich that would propel him to places he always imagined. Truett, now having his money maker, felt it was time for a new name change once more. Chick-fil-A, Chick for chicken, Phil for fillet, and a capital A for grade A quality chicken. To add the final touches to his new masterpiece, Truett gave the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich a buttered roll slightly toasted and 2 pickles for a little taste and crunch. Now having his brand name and chicken sandwich, Truett noticed the growth in the suburbs. He saw indoor malls migrate from what would be downtown in the center of cities and small towns to areas that were nicer and provided more security. Truett's sister, Cathy, who had a gift shop located in a suburb in southwestern Atlanta, helped her brother get a location in the Greenbrier shopping mall in November of 1967. The move was great by Truett and was the first of many successful Chick-fil-A's that began here. This set the tone for the future of the Chick-fil-A, as the majority of its restaurants are in malls and shopping centers. Following the success of Chick-fil-A in shopping malls, Truett stayed focused and kept his eyes on the bigger picture, which was expansion. Doing this, Truett opened his first standalone restaurant in 1986 in North Druid Hills, Atlanta, Georgia. Years followed, and more Chick-fil-A's popped up across the country. In 1995, Chick-fil-A began to get more exposure due to its popular ad campaign, Eat More Chicken. The idea of a cow holding a sign telling Americans to eat more chicken was a sensation for the company. Chick-fil-A was even chosen by the NCAA Men's Football League to sponsor the Peach Bowl that Chick-fil-A still has naming rights today. In 2006, Chick-fil-A passed $2 billion in sales, allowing the fast food chain to become a billion-dollar brand. Chick-fil-A's success is primarily due to Truett's biblical beliefs and always having faith in God in the face of trouble. With the exception of 1982, Chick-fil-A has not seen a year in which they declined in store sales. In fact, from the years 2010 to 2018, Chick-fil-A has seen an annual 15% increase in sales each year. In 2019, Chick-fil-A became the third largest fast food chain by revenue, only behind Starbucks and McDonald's, while having only less than a third of locations open in the United States and being closed on Sundays. Chick-fil-A, which is a fast food chain built on biblical beliefs and good stewards not just to the customer but to the employee as well, continues to thrive in the present day. In 2013, Samuel Truett Cathy stepped down as CEO of Chick-fil-A, which is now held by his grandson Andrew Cathy. While he remained on the board, he continued to work behind the scenes for the fast food chain. He always praised that his core principles and good stewards are what ultimately drove his company. The following year, on September 8, 2014, in his Clayton County, Georgia home, Samuel Truett Cathy went to be with the Lord. Samuel Truett Cathy's legacy will forever live on through his family and the fast food chain he founded, Chick-fil-A. Samuel Truett Cathy was a humble man who lived by the word of God.